Okay, we're gonna call the meeting to order. We do have a quorum. And if you would please stand, Rob will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Stand, attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And Mr. Frazier will lead us in our invocation.
Let's bow. Our dear Lord and Father in heaven, we are eternally grateful for all that you have blessed us with. Father, we want to acknowledge you as the great creator, our sustainer, our redeemer, and we thank you for your son Jesus, for the sacrifice that he made on behalf of each one of us. We're grateful tonight for this school district and for the board that so faithfully serves the interests of our community. We thank you for everyone who's involved in the staffing and the care and the education of our students. We pray that you'll lift them up, that you will protect them and bless them, that you'll give them the strength and the courage to make it through this year, which is one of the most challenging years that we've ever had to face. We pray that you'll be with our deliberations tonight, that they be in accordance with your will. And it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. And Charles will read our mission.
Mission of GISD. The mission of Gatesville Independent School District, a portal to limitless possibilities, is to empower our students to be life-ready, knowledge seekers, and problem solvers by instilling leadership, innovation, integrity, critical thinking, and service through challenging and engaging learning experiences facilitated by passionate teachers and supported by caring parents and community members.
Thank you. Public comments, I need to read this. The board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. Anyone who has signed up to speak in advance of the meeting in accordance with the board procedures may do so at this time. The board asks that each participant's comments pertain to district business and be no longer than 5 minutes. For any member of the public who is accompanied by a translator, your time will be doubled as required by law. Remember that the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on our agenda. In addition, the board has adopted policies to provide prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and concerns for employees, students or their parents, and the general public. Copies of our district policies and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available at the Gatesville Independent School District Administration Office, 311 South Lovers Lane, Gatesville, Texas. Dr. Pollard, did you get any comments?
I always add this little blurb about, because of COVID-19, we've got limited seating in here, so if someone wants to email a question or a concern or comment to me at bpollard@gatesvillisd.org, then I'll try to check periodically through the meeting and let that be known to everyone.
Are there any public comments tonight? Okay. So we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any questions concerning the consent agenda? Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Rob made the motion, David seconded. Any questions at all?
I'd just like to comment, looking at the attendance we have so far, the numbers were all really good.
Yeah.
95, 96. We just need to keep it there.
Yeah.
Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. None opposed, motion carries. Thank you. Move on to information items.
Well, this evening we're lucky to have Robert Meyer here. He comes every year to give us an update on our collection of delinquent taxes, and these guys always do a great job. We're glad you're here, Robert.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
Nice to
Can I
see
leave
you.
this on, or would you?
You can take that off.
All right. I'm about 6 feet, I think, from each of you.
Yeah.
Might be able to. Well, my household, they really like the idea of it.
Mine too.
Thank you for having me, members of the board, Dr. Pollard. It was a good year for us. I think you've got in your computers and on the screen here are the charts that I prepared that sort of give an idea of the collections that you had. And I must say, as we all are experiencing, wearing our masks here and so forth, that it's a very challenging year. But your tax collections have really responded very well. Your property owners, your taxpayers have responded very, very well to the payment of their taxes. I will point out that most of your taxes are collected by the end of January, the delinquency date. So all of this occurred after a lot of those taxes, but you did get some taxes that get paid after that date. And we've been working very hard with your taxpayers, those that contact us and have some difficulty paying their taxes. You know, we always do that. We always reach out and want to talk to your taxpayers and see if there's some problem that we can overcome together between them and us to work out some payment plans or to arrange for payment of their taxes. Even now, most especially in the circumstances now, we're very aware of what's going on, and if there is some issue we can work with them on, we very much reach out to do that. But your collections have really, really been good. The first chart I have on page 2, this chart shows your annual collections versus your levy for each of the last 5 years. And as usual, the district collects over 100% of its tax levy when you add in taxes for that year. The first year I'm looking at is 2019 year, where you levied $9.2 million, $9,216,000. You collected $9,291,000 when you add in the delinquent tax collections into penalties and interest on all of that, which equals 100.81% of your actual levy. So you, again, as you can see for the other years, 2018, you're 100.74% of your levy. 2017, 100.33% of your levy. In 2016, 101.41%. Typically, the district is always collecting more tax revenue when you include your penalties and interest and your delinquent taxes along with it, which is a healthy sign, especially in these days, that the taxpayers are still able to pay their taxes. And then what drives tax collections is the ability of your taxpayers to pay, and we're, even under circumstances, we're still seeing that that's still the case in Gatesville ISD. And property owners are very conscientious over here, so we usually have a high percentage of collection of your taxes. On page 3 of my report, the next chart basically just shows what's outstanding. Out of all the last 5 years of taxes, there's just less than 1% of each of the tax levies that are due. For 2019, you collected 98.15% of the taxes that were levied actually for the past year. For 2018, you're at over 99%. That's just tax to tax, 19 taxes, no penalties and interest, no prior years included in there. So what's outstanding, for example, for 18 is 0.78% of the levy for that year. And you can see for 2017, you're 99.65%. So very small percentage, 0.35%, hardly anything for 2016 and 2017 are still outstanding. There's always usually going to be some uncollectible taxes in a tax levy. Taxes are levied against land, improvements on the land, and personal property, in mobile homes. Mobile homes are mobile. They have a way of rolling away. They roll away, and the taxpayer rolls away with it. Your taxes roll away with it. Personal property, business personal property, if the property owner ceases to do business, the property goes away, the inventory, the equipment, whatever was used in the trade or business, that goes away, and a property owner, which may be a corporation or a business entity, goes away, your taxes go away. And so there's always some uncollectible taxes in each levy. But as you can see, going to 2015, 0.11% is what we've got left over from that year's levy. A very small percentage of your levy goes uncollected. And so that's a tribute to the taxpayers over here, and what's on the roll over here is ultimately collected from the taxpayers. And then the next chart I have, these are a series of charts, there's 4 of them this year, that just show what you turn over to us. Each July you turn over to us the unpaid taxes from the prior year. And if we could just go up one a little bit more on that pie, yeah, that pie right there. This pie shows the 2019 taxes that you turned over to us, the balance of taxes, in July of this year, July of 2020. At the time you turned them over to us, there was $266,000 in base tax left over from 2019 as of July of this year, 20. And we collected not quite 36%, 95,807 of those taxes in the last few months since you turned it over to us. The balance of taxes, we've had some bankruptcies, we have taken some legal action and filed some lawsuits, and we had quite a few folks that entered into payment agreements, and we have some that we've already determined to be maybe non-collectible, And finally, the rest of them, we've just had 3 months to work on. We're continuing our research on those taxes. The next series of pie charts, these represent the taxes you turned over to us from prior years. The top pie chart, these are the 18 taxes you turned over to us about 14 months ago in July of 2019. And in that period of time, we collected 77%, or 212,000 of the 274,000 that was turned over to us. Now, I'm talking about base tax now. Obviously, when you're actually collecting these taxes, they're delinquent, so you're getting penalties and interest with them. But just to keep these numbers straight, this is just base tax. The balance of taxes for 2018, we've filed some lawsuits and recovered some through that process. A lot of them are in payment agreements, and we're still working on the balance of taxes that have been turned over to us. And as you can see, for 2017 and 2016, the green pie wedge gets bigger each of those years. As you can see, we've collected nearly everything that was turned over to us in each of those years. 88% so far in 2017, and 94% of what was turned over to us in 2016. There's a 16 tax you turned over to us in 17. So each year, each July you turn over to us a pie of taxes, and we start working on it in July, and working with your taxpayers, and working through the process of getting those taxes collected. And the process is we go through sending, this is going to be on page 9, or 8 rather. We send out notifications. We've sent out over 1,000 notices in the past 12 months to your taxpayers to notify them of the taxes that are delinquent. We do file lawsuits in the past, and those notices sort of increase in severity, but they open up a way for us to talk to them. We have a staff member who actually lives in Gatesville, and she's in the Gatesville the Cordell County Tax Office on a regular basis, and so she's regularly available to talk to your taxpayers, work out payment agreements, and be available for them. And I live in Waco, so I'm on a regular basis over here as well. We have filed some lawsuits. We filed 28 lawsuits in the last year, involving $73,000 in taxes due to the district. Even in the lawsuit status, we still work with your taxpayers, and most of those lawsuits get resolved through the taxes getting paid and the lawsuit getting dismissed. We did take 14 judgments on some properties, and usually when we get to that stage, most of those properties, especially with a real property, these are properties that people, as valuable as much as we all love Gatesville, there's some parts of Gatesville that are less loved, and not, sometimes we have vacant lots and derelict structures and things like this. We work really with the city to try to pinpoint some of those areas in the city of Gatesville that need to be foreclosed on, and we go through the process of foreclosing on those properties, and if no one buying them, we can work them through our tax resale process to get those done. So we have had some tax sales in the last year as well. We had 12 properties posted in the last year. 11 of those got paid, and one actually ended up going through sales. And we had some bankruptcies. So we work through regularly your delinquent tax roll, working with your taxpayers, usually getting taxes paid on just without litigation and things like that. But we do stay very active in working with your tax office. You got a great tax assessor collector, I may say so. He's on top of stuff. He's got good equipment, well-trained staff down there, open to work with taxpayers and be available to them. And it's really a joy to work over here, because everybody's very amenable to trying to get our job done, because they know how important it is for the school district to have the revenues flowing in. Mr. Frazier reminds me of that on a regular basis.
Well, Robert, thank you. Your team does a great job.
Well, thank you.
I know it can be a thankless task.
Well, a lot of times, it's somewhat rewarding when someone who's struggling with getting their bills paid contacts us and says, I know I owe delinquent tax, I know I need to get them paid, what can I do? And we go through to make sure, first thing we look through is make sure they're getting all the benefits. If it's their home, make sure they're getting their homestead exemption, so they're getting every benefit that law allows them. And we sit down with them and ask them, well, what are your circumstances? How can you take care of this? And many times we're able to do that, and they work through those things and get them paid, and it's really a feeling of accomplishment for them to get it off their back, and for us to work with them through that. So we feel there's some positive feedback we get from a lot of your taxpayers. So we appreciate working over here and working for the school and the school district and the board and yourself and even Mr. Frazier at times. The one thing I didn't get, Daryl's aware of this, is that we also are filing audits for the district, and we're in the process of doing that right now, where we actually go back, and those taxes that don't get collected, because of some uncollectible things. And late homestead exemptions and things like this that occur. Part of your funding process is how valuable you are, how much value there is in a roll. Well, that roll gets chiseled down over the years. Late homestead exemption things happen. And we can file an audit, which we do with TEA, saying, hey, you really weren't as valuable as you were in past years, and they actually will revamp your funding for this past year, and we'll recapture some of the lost revenue. And we're in the process of filing audits for some of your prior years that hopefully by this time next year should be completely through fruition and be recovering a lot of lost revenue from TEA for you. So in addition to our tax collections, we actually do things like that for the district to make sure your property taxes are as healthy. You maximize as much out of them as the law allows you to have.
And you've done well in that regard too.
Yeah. We try to keep track of that and work with the appraisal district to get that information from the appraisal district through over to TEA through the comptroller's office. And you know, we're just glad any way we can to assist the district in getting your property tax revenue where it needs to be. I know you need to get every dollar out of every dollar, especially these days with all the expenses and things like that you got going on.
Do y'all have any questions for Robert?
You may have the answer to this. It's something that's puzzled me for a while. Okay, you have a piece of property belongs to a man that is of age, that he has it tax frozen.
Mm-hmm.
He passes away.
Mm-hmm.
That piece of property stays in his name, but he's dead, but somebody pays the taxes. How is that legal? Do you understand my question?
I got the part where, under state law, your resident homestead, if you're a senior, which means you're 65 years of age or older or disabled, number one, your taxes are frozen.
Right.
And if it's your homestead, which it has to be, you can file what's called deferral, which actually defers our collection activities on your property. In other words, we cannot foreclose on your homestead if you're in that status, and that's true. And also, it also affects how much penalty and interest is charged as well.
Now.
And when you pass, so that person passes, usually what happens,
Right.
or if they were to move out of it too, that happens too, then there's no more deferral, and the exemptions usually come off, certainly when they pass. So the taxes become due and payable at that time, and usually we monitor those things, and we contact, somebody owns the property even when someone passes. There's heirs out there someplace.
Right.
And
But
that's,
it's never been changed to their name.
well, what the reason that happens is a lot of times people, I would call them testate without a will or even affidavit or anything. And we spend, one of our staff member here especially spends a great deal of time, we all spend a great deal of time going through all the public records to try to identify who that person's heirs may be, using internet databases we have available, and some word of mouth, calling people and finding out, did you know so-and-so, did you know, was he married, did he have children, and where are those folks? And we spend a great deal of time tracking those folks down and making them aware. And once we do that, unless there's something filed of record, nobody knows who that is. And that's what usually happens at an instance. And so the appraiser leaves it in their name because they don't know who the new owner is. And usually we contact the new owner or the heirs, and if they can't pay the taxes, we go through foreclosure action. Sometimes that happens where property gets eaten up with taxes because of that.
This particular piece of property I know about, I kind of pursued and tried to purchase it, and that's what I ran into.
Okay.
And the taxes are not delinquent on it, they're paid up.
Oh.
But it's still listed in the man's name and he's dead.
Yeah, unless, this has to be something filed of record. Usually have, I don't want to get too far afield, like something like an affidavit, heirship, or probate. If that's done, and we find that, we'll let the appraisers know about that. A legal conveyance or transfer, because you don't know who it goes to. And they don't know until somebody files something of record in the accounting records that indicates lawfully who that heir is, and it could be multiple people. Many times in a situation like that, it is multiple people.
Can be a lot of children involved.
Yeah, I filed lawsuits for 350 people in the lawsuit on a tract of land because it went that far, generation after generation after generation, trying to find that stuff.
I just wondered if you had the answer to it.
Yeah. Well, there's no answer to find those people. It's just this is the process.
Right.
Yeah. And that's why once you get that, and actually go through tax foreclosure sale, that does it. But if it's paid, yeah, they still haven't probably done the paperwork either the person died without a will, or they haven't filed what's called an affidavit, that would do it.
What if you have a will and it's inherited by, say you have 4 sons and they're all 65 on top of that, but it never has been split estate of the person that died, taxes are being paid.
Taxes are being paid?
Do you stay under the estate of that person, the deceased?
Well, if there's a will, and the will has been probated, then, and it lists the 4 children, it can be listed in the name of any one. Property owned in that situation is owned by those 4 people, and what's called undivided interest. And property can be listed in the name of any one of those property owners, and they can actually request the appraisal district to assess the taxes on their interest, on their 1/25th interest. That happens a lot. We have undivided interest on the tax roll a lot. So yeah, it can stay in the name of the estate, but if the will's probated, they try to put it in the name of one of the heirs. Either way, if the will's probated, people call me up all the time and say, "Well, he had a will. My granddaddy had a will."
Do you have to
and I've got it
probate?
right here. It's unfortunately never been filed at the courthouse.
Do you have to
That's the
probate
case
it?
of this
Yes,
one.
the will doesn't speak.
You would to sell it.
Well, the will doesn't, it has to be probated in 4 years. For the will to speak, it has to be probated. That's what I'm saying. A lot of people call me, here's the will right here, granddaddy left me the property.
Yeah.
Right, did you probate it? No, when did he die? 11 years ago.
Then what happens?
That's it. He died what's called a testate without a will. So whatever his heirs of law are, all his descendants. So granddaddy had daddy had four kids and left it to one of them, and they didn't probate the will. All 4 of them own that property. Yeah, sometimes we bring, I don't want to drag your meeting out. A lot of times we bring people together. You'd be
Good or
surprised.
bad.
You'd be
They
surprised.
split them too.
Well, we bring together their interest as to what's going on.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, I have.
That's a whole new twist on this one, I know about.
Yeah, it's real. It's earth shattering. Yeah, some of the trials and tribulations.
Well, you're just full of information.
We get billed for that information.
Sometimes I just get told I'm full of it. Well, anytime you have questions about any of that kind of stuff or whatever it is, just let me know. I'll be glad to either Dr. Pollard or give Darryl a call, or just give me a call. I'll be glad to talk to you about this stuff. That's all we do day in and day out. I have charts all over my office. Who owns what, who begat who. And we go through layers of that stuff, trying to undo those, scramble those messes up. But thank you for having me, and
Robert, thank you.
Doing
Thank
a
you.
great job, sir.
Very good.
Appreciate
Good
it.
luck to you in all your endeavors here, especially in these circumstances.
Thank
It-
you.
It's tough.
Be careful driving back.
Yeah, have a safe trip.
Well,
Thank you,
so
Robert.
much.
You
Y'all
bet.
stay safe too. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Barrett, back to school updates.
Yes, I've got a, just kind of a catch-all back to school updates. I like to keep that on the agenda just to give you guys updates on a couple of 3 of the big important things going on right now. First of all, just kind of enrollment numbers. And I pulled up the chart there, and you can see that this is the 4th week of school as of 9/11. So you can see there that we had in this first column, here are all the in-person learners by campus. Here are the remote learners by campus. And then here's that small group of hybrid where they're at home most of the day, but they come for band or football, volleyball, UIL type related activities, or some of our other CTE courses that are real hands-on. And there's our total student enrollment. Our total student enrollment is, we've got about 3 more students than we did this time last year. So we're right at what we had last year. And so looking at it by percentage, the little guys at the primary, 85% of them are coming in person, 15% are at home. High school, on the other hand, 71% are in person, 23% are doing remote, and 6% are doing the hybrid. And so those are kind of the 2 bookends as far as the spectrum, and the others are kind of in between, elementary, intermediate, junior high. So district-wide, you know how back in the summer it was more like 70-30? It keeps inching more closer to 80-20. So right now it's at 76-21 and then 3% hybrid. And so I thought that was just kind of interesting. Our next date where students who have been virtual can come back is coming up next week. So we have that spaced out every couple of weeks, so it gives our teachers a chance to prepare when they do come back from being virtual. Now the flip side, if you're in person and you get apprehensive about your health or wellness, you can flip to virtual at any moment. You don't have to wait. But we do ask that you wait on the opposite scenario. So going back,
I got a few numbers today, even like elementaries already has over 20 on their list. Junior high's already got about 15 on their list.
To come back?
That'll be back
Yes.
next
Okay.
week.
this past go around, there was some campuses had, like Shane said, 20 coming back, and then others had maybe 10 and everything in between. So they're, as they see how things are going, some of them are wanting to come back. A COVID update, so as of 9/17, and this really as of today, since the start of school, August 13th, altogether we've had 6 students test positive and 1 presumed positive, for a total of 7. And 4 of those were at high school, 1 at intermediate, 1 at elementary, 1 at primary, none at junior high. Now, of those 7 students, 4 of them were asymptomatic the entire time, were never sick. Another one was sick for a few hours and were better, so we've been very fortunate. The ones who've had it, all 7 have recovered technically. So they've gotten 2 negative tests plus a doctor's note to come back. That is the criteria to return. So all 7 have officially recovered, and so everyone is healthy. We've had no staff members so far catch it, and so we feel like that through the contact tracing, when a student does catch it, we've caught it in a timely enough fashion where we've sent them home, quarantined the class, and it hasn't spread. What we've kind of seen as a trend is that typically there's a parent or family member working at TDCJ and the student caught it from that parent or family member. So I really feel for the TDCJ workers. They are truly a frontline essential worker going into those prisons, and there's a lot of I feel like inmates that have the COVID positive classification, so it's a tough place to work. So we really, our hearts go out to them. One other thing, today we started offering free breakfast and lunches to all students until Christmas, and I think Charles, y'all at Evan had started that, and I think some other districts. We're waiting. Basically what happened is that the U.S. Department of Agriculture finally told the Texas Department of Agriculture Gatesville ISD can keep their evening meal program and do this. That's what we were waiting on. We didn't jump right at the chance a week or so ago to do this immediately because they said, well, if you offer free breakfast and lunch, you're going to have to nix that evening meal program. And we didn't want to do that because a lot of kids eat that evening meal. And so the federal government really kind of came down on Texas and said, no, you can allow that to happen. So until Christmas, they have promised to reimburse the district, and going forward after the new year, we'll see what they say. If it continues to be reimbursed, we'll surely keep doing that for our students. The virtual kids, of course, can still come up at 1 o'clock to elementary and pick up a sack lunch as well. And then finally, we want to give you just an update. You probably saw homecoming that our football team won. Ricky, if you want to come on in here. It was an exciting win, and but our other programs too have been very successful, and Ricky wanted to tell you guys a little bit about that.
Good evening. Do have a lot of good things going on right now in the fall. Want to be sure to share that. Of course, football, big win Friday night. Glad for those coaches and those kids in that program. It's nice to do it, in front of homecoming crowd right there at 50%. Some other sports going on right now in cross country. Our girls have placed first, second, and third in their 3 meets. They've been, just a few points off of winning those 3 meets. Our boys have won back-to-back meet titles. The last 2 weeks, they were second place in their 3rd stop. One of our multi-sport kids, Luis Macias, who is a 4-sport athlete at Gatesville, has won the last 2 boys races in the varsity division. So cross country is having a banner start. Our tennis program, which we've talked about a lot, opened up district play last week, beating Stephenville 16-3. They've won their last 3 matches, and their 3 losses, we start looking at that, their 3 losses have been to Fredericksburg, which is the defending state champions in 4A, to Wall, which is the top 10 team in 3A, and to Class 6A Belton High School. And to really break it down further than that, if you take our top 9 positions in our tennis program, they're actually undefeated this year. So they are really doing well. I think Coach Jones, Coach Tatum had done a great job there. That's also one of the programs that we added junior high to this year. We've got several kids taking part in that.
Ricky, didn't they sweep Temple?
Yes, 19-0. And if you don't know much about tennis and team tennis, to win 19 matches and not lose any is just unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is. I mean, against anybody. I mean, that's everybody that you put in a slot that won their match. And that's what's good about their program is they've got a really strong senior class. They're going to graduate 6 seniors this year, but they're going to be strong again next year. And I think we've done our part to help build that program. We have folks in our community that give lessons to our kids. Our kids play all summer. They go play in tournaments. And I think just having that junior high program will benefit that program as well at the high school level. Our volleyball team is 13-3. They've won their last 10 games in a row. They open up district play tomorrow night against Stephenville. And we also have golf going on in the fall. We have a couple of tournaments. Most of the golf tournaments will be in the spring, but Coach Dean is a rehire, and they've got a couple of tournaments the boys do in November. So that's kind of where we're at right now.
Ricky, what did you say volleyball's record was?
They are 13-3, and they broke into the top 20 rankings this week as well. So they're playing well. They're playing well. Any questions about those 5 sports that are in season? Stuff at the bottom down there, just some athlete numbers that I've compiled. We do this in the fall, we do it at springtime or right after Christmas, and also later in the spring. And our numbers are about 30 below right now based on this point last year. But we also have about 25 to 27 kids who we know would have been in athletics had they been in school. They're at-home learners right now. So our numbers have been good. We expanded our C team programs at our junior high and our volleyball and basketball programs. We've started golf and tennis down there as well. And we're trying to get as many kids involved. I think as many kids as we can get involved in something, whether it be in athletics or any program up here at the junior high and high school level. That's our job. So we made it available to get kids involved in things. I want to thank you all. One of the things that our coaches at our junior high level, we're feeding our kids down there. And to me, if we're taking our kids away from a meal at home that night, it's our job to feed them. And I want to thank y'all for making that possible for them. It's been a big deal for them.
So what sports are at junior high?
The
tennis is the new thing.
Tennis and golf.
Okay.
We also have
Golf.
football, cross country, volleyball, basketball.
The regular,
track
and then
field.
tennis and golf.
Yes, ma'am. And that's been our tennis and golf combined have it's on here about 19 to 20. It's about 19 to 20 that are in those actual classes, but we'll also have some other athletes who are in the regular athletic period that will also get to do some of that later in the spring. So it'll reach a few more kids than what's showing on those numbers too. We had a really great response in adding those 2 programs.
Who does the golf at junior high?
Coach Dean as well.
Dean? Okay.
Those class periods are back to back. He has junior high kids are 7th period, and the high school class is 8th period. So he's back to back in the afternoons. We have access to the country club. They go there, a few days a week. They do some stuff up here as well too.
So he enjoys his tough job.
He's enjoying it. I think it was
He's
tough for him to let go.
Yeah.
But
I know.
he's done a great job with it.
Yeah.
He's been very successful.
That's great.
And he has a passion for it too.
Mm-hmm.
I'm glad we kept him. I'm not gonna lie. Glad he stayed on.
All right.
I really like the idea of the junior high expansions because there's not a lot of things they can get involved in at junior high.
Yeah, I'll say this, Mr. Alderson. One thing it's done is, let's say a kid is a single sport kid at the junior high level. Let's say they run track, and that they would go for the first 4 or 5 months of school just doing a straight off season. And we realigned our athletic periods to put more coaches, our high school coaches down there at the junior high periods. So we're giving our kids more exposures to other sports. Even though we don't offer baseball and softball and soccer at the junior high level, those kids are going to get exposed to that this year. But as they cross the street and become freshmen and 9th graders in a year or two, they've been around our coaches. So we It was a big deal. I owe a lot of favors to our administrators, our campus principals, for letting us, tweak our class periods, but it's been good. I mean, I'm just talking with all of our coaches, the positives have definitely outweighed any negative we might have had, but our junior high kids, that's where we have to capture. We've got to capture those kids down there and keep them involved, and I think we're in the right
I
direction.
think you get them in these programs, it'll also improve discipline and grades for those students because they're involved in the
It makes them accountable.
activity.
It makes them accountable, and that's one of the things that let me rephrase, that I made a big deal starting last year, and our coaches do too. Discipline, grades, behavior. We want you to be a great student first before you're a great basketball player or a cross-country kid, and that's part of it. We want you to represent us in the right way, and we're sure our kids are doing that.
Are other schools in our district having junior high tennis and golf?
In our old district, Marianne, Robinson and China Spring had it.
Okay.
In our new district that Tennessee is, for this year and next year, Brownwood has tennis, and I believe Glen Rose offers it at junior
So
high.
more are, okay.
Yes, and that's one of the reasons why we couldn't do it before that. There weren't many schools to play.
Mhm.
This was kind of the right time to get into it. There were schools that we could schedule with that are making that available at their junior high levels.
Yeah,
So,
good.
so they'll have tournaments, they'll have matches in the springtime with the junior high kids. That's going to be pretty neat.
Good.
Ricky, thank you. A lot of good things going on.
Thank you.
Lots of good stuff. Thank you all very much.
Congratulations Friday night.
Thank you.
Okay, you want to go to the fundraiser?
You see how quickly Ricky left when we got the fundraiser?
Okay.
So,
Do we want him back? Anybody?
we can call him back in.
Yeah.
We've got questions. So, because of COVID-19, there's still some apprehensions about our students going door to door, selling things like they used to. And so some of our programs have done some non-traditional type fundraising activities where they're doing things more virtually. And so, for example, this year our high school football team did a telethon type fundraiser where they 1 hour on Saturday, they just called friends and family that they knew. And so that brought in over $20,000, so it was very successful. The junior high athletics program did their fundraiser that they've been doing online this year, and so several other programs have been doing different types of things. And we may introduce like a hybrid thing, like if you sell cookie dough, some of these vendors are starting to deliver it directly to your home, to where that way there's no kid having to take it to this person's house and this person's house. The other thing would be if we did have a more traditional fundraiser, we might have to handle it like the Chromebook deployment, to where, okay, if a bunch of products come in, we've got to be kind of strategic as far as how we get it back to the people that bought it. Whereas we don't want a mad rush of people up on the campus just because of germs and things like that, where if we kept it outside and had a pickup line, they could do it like that. And so that's kind of where we're at right now on fundraisers. Do y'all have concerns about that, questions, different things about any of those? Kind of what we're doing?
I had some concerns on I'm in Killeen, Temple, Waco every day traveling, and somebody is standing at every intersection begging. I don't like the GoFundMe stuff. That's panhandling, and I don't want to see us raise a generation of kids that panhandle. Like they just, if you need a fundraiser, have a fundraiser, have a car wash or a bake sale or sell something. Don't, the GoFundMe stuff just rubs me the wrong way. Besides that, the GoFundMe, the people that put it on get a big percentage of the money, or not a big percentage, but they get some of the money. And that was my whole deal on wanting to discuss about it. That's easy. All you gotta do is hire some company to come in and they call everybody and send all these text messages out, and the money comes in and everybody's happy. Except for, what are we teaching our kids? I just don't, that was my whole deal.
Yeah.
I don't like that kind of, I see it all day, every day, and,
Right.
and it just, you hand one of them a business card and ask them if they want a job, and that's the last thing they want.
Duly
A lot
noted.
of them. Now, there are people out there that have actually made the phone call and put in a job application, and several of them got hired.
Yeah.
But, most of them are just,
Well, like I said, Rob, hopefully after the COVID stuff dies down, they can go back to the more traditional things like what you said, car washes and things like that, where you see the signs and the people come over and you wash their cars. So our hands have been a little bit tied, but things seem to be getting better, so maybe cautiously, optimistically, we can see something like that return in the spring.
Or if not the spring, next year,
Yeah.
maybe.
My thought is there's a lot of this, I guess, organizations in the school. I think the district, and I'm picking on athletics now, the district pretty well gives them a really nice budget.
Right.
And yet they still want more and more. And these other clubs are still hitting the same people. I think there needs to be looked at and approved prior to. Do we do that?
Yeah, fundraising and all programs, I guess however you look at it, fortunately or unfortunately, do fundraising, whether it be band boosters or different programs, they go out and do fundraisers.
What does the football team use this 20,000 for? What is that, or what's the purpose of it?
Additional things that aren't in the budget, so it could be more for, additional food or just different items. I'll go ask, I can get with Luke and get specifics on what all they're gonna plan on using it for. One thing that,
They used to buy milk with it.
yeah, sometimes like in the heat of the day, they'll have drinks and stuff for them, outside. I remember during the summer, when they had all those athletic camps, they had like ice pops and things like that. Well, the problem is everything's expensive. If you buy that, something small for 300 kids, it adds up. And so.
But in that case, athletic camps pay for themselves, right?
Not necessarily.
Hmm.
Oftentimes what we do for the kids,
But we're charging the kids to come to
Yes.
camp. Then we're asking for donations to buy drinks for them.
no, not during the camps. What I'm saying is that sort of thing is what,
Uh-huh.
it could go over and above what the budget
Okay.
is. Anything else about?
Any other question? Now we'll go on to the action items. And that
Mr.
will
Harper?
be Scott Harper.
Well, these next two topics are part of the compliance piece. We solicit volunteers at the beginning of each year for parents to be a part of our SHAC, our School Health Advisory Council, and attached are the names of the ones that had a completed form turned in. And so the 31 names are presented to you as to appoint or to approve as our SHAC committee for this school year. And this is about the same number that we run in the 30s or low 30s. I think we had 32 last year, and around the same number the year before. So that hasn't fallen off, but it's still these are probably the parents that their kids are coming and they're volunteering for it, so we think that they'll be good members for our SHAC. So the recommendation is to approve the list for the SHAC, which includes our community co-chair, Nicole Schopweiler.
Okay, let me get to that. So you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion? I'll make the motion. Is there a second, Rob? Any questions for Mr. Harper? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand. Are you?
I'm trying to read the list. We ain't had time to read the list.
So this is the group of parents that help us out with all the school health stuff. And Nicole, she's done it for a lot of years. She's helped us. She does a good job. And some of these are dual parents and employees, like Krista Hitt works for us. But most of them are predominantly just parents.
And some of them have multiple kids, just whichever was the primary student was the one that we listed them under here.
We're really fortunate to have this many people volunteer, because oftentimes getting folks to volunteer for a committee after work is difficult to find.
And that's a big group. Motion carries, by the way.
I voted yes.
Yeah, I saw you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. The
Okay.
next item is our emergency operation procedures or operations plan. Every year we go through and we tweak the plan, but as far as compliance, we have to present it to the board. Our SROs are involved, all 5 of them, to go over and tweak it. And it's a compliance piece we have to have, but we do go through and look at it and make sure that we make changes that are more current, such as our training now that we do our drills with our multi-departments and stuff in February for our active shooter. There's a lot of things that will come down. It has a little bit of changes And the law enforcement side is in tuned and helps us make those changes. And this year we added the COVID-19, our response piece, which y'all had voted on that, way earlier. It wasn't necessary because it's part of the EOP, but you did it in advance time so that we had for the beginning of school, and so that was added as an appendix to this EOP. And then when it all goes away, hopefully that appendix will come out, and then it'll just be strictly the same EOP that we've done in years past.
And
The
this
recommendation is to present, to approve the EOP as presented.
Okay, and this is on the website for anybody to look at?
For the staff.
For the
Yeah,
staff.
it's not public. The 25 pages is for the staff to be able to go in and.
And go through the process,
Scott and our SROs are actually working on a safety audit, and so I saw one of the SROs today questioning the front office staff about procedures and things like that. And tell you what, those SROs come very much in handy, from tackling a would-be car thief to dissuading nasty comments from folks. I mean, they really, very important.
And they've been going to help us on our home visits, our welfare checks on our remote learners, to help us with our attendance. We have to make contact. Those that we still are on radio silence, so the SRO will take the school rep and go and just check and find out, so we can lay eyes on the student and make sure everything's okay. And then they also help with our feeding program. Whenever they come up after 1 o'clock, they also help that pass out the foods, and they put a good face forward for us and for the PD.
And if any person in the district would be curious about this, they could call you and ask
Absolutely.
about it.
Mhm.
Okay, so you've heard the recommendation. Is there a motion?
I'll make it.
Charles, and seconded by David. Any questions? All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. And Mr. Webb.
What do you want tonight?
No money.
Asynchronous plan.
I've cut back,
You
cut
cut
way
back.
back. Here to talk about our asynchronous plan. So, in response to COVID-19, the state came out with some options, what they called the Strong Start 2020, 2021, preparing for remote instruction. And so, it's in response to trying to keep students, educators, staff safe. And so they came up with a couple different options of providing remote learning. Because there are several districts that still aren't back to school, they're still learning remotely. And then the rest of the districts are in person, but they're also having to provide remote instruction to students who have chosen to stay home. And so there's two different options you can go with. You can go with they call it, it's big words, but asynchronous plan, and then synchronous plan. A synchronous plan is when you have a class and the kid is connected at certain times of the day actively with the teacher. Asynchronous is kind of you have up your lessons loaded, maybe videos or something like that, lessons, and then the kids can get on at their time when they are ready to do their work. And so you can combine some of both, have asynchronous, and synchronous, where you're there maybe on a Zoom with a teacher getting support or something like that. And so this option that we've chosen, for our community is the asynchronous plan, because we still have a lot of parents that are they're still going to work, but so their kids may be at home, and so and our teachers are working extremely hard right now because it's extremely difficult to be able to teach in person and be able to have a remote setting, and we've tried to do the best we can with having some remote teachers that are handling, like maybe K through 6, that's handling just the at-home learning, and then the others are handling the in-person. The hard part though is for secondary. You don't have a whole lot of extra teachers, and so 7 through 12 is having to shoulder both. And so it's almost like you're running two schools. You're running an in-person school and you're running a virtual school, and you have the same amount of staff to cover it. And so it is extremely difficult to balance. And so the workload is tremendous. It has been much more, but we think the asynchronous plan is a better option for our staff, our students, and our families at home. And so this is the plan that we submitted to the state of Texas. They send you a rubric that you've got to go off of. They let you look at some exemplars from some other schools, and so it just runs through it. Just explains to you how you're going to hold remote instruction. Kind of what's your instructional schedule going to look like. Attendance and enrollment. We had a lot of questions. We had some phone calls with TEA about some different questions on attendance, and they all kept saying, well, what's in your plan? What's in your plan? So we just threw everything we thought we needed to. Any decisions that we made, we threw it in our plan, and then we submitted this to TEA about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and we got approval about a week later. Kind of had, like I said, it has some recommended schedules. It has the materials that we use, feedback timelines, lesson preparation, students with disabilities, homebound. There's a lot of different things. How are you going to check for student progress? Engagement, what resources you're using, what learning management platform you're going to use. For us, we use Google Classroom as our learning management platform, but the state came out and said they purchased a platform for the entire state called Schoology, but we decided not to go with that because it wasn't going to be ready until September. Well, we started school August 13th, so we weren't going to switch to something new after school had started. I've talked to some districts that have done that, and they're having lots of problems. So I'm glad that we didn't do that. But other things are just like what type of assessments, and then how are you going to implement it. And so this is the plan that we submitted to TEA, and I know Dr. Pollard has talked about this in the past, but this is the actual official plan. And so I guess that's all I have. Do you guys have any questions about remote instruction, asynchronous versus synchronous?
How's the
We're doing both.
We're doing asynchronous, but we may have some classes, like we may have an ESL classroom that may run synchronous, where she's going to have her ESL kids that are going to get on at 10 o'clock in the morning, and they may do a lesson live with the teacher. So we have some of that going on, but predominantly we're running the asynchronous piece.
The state had kept kind of forewarning us. They basically kept saying, don't expect this plan to get approved the first go around. Expect it to be batted back with recommendations to improve it. And so when we submitted it and got it back a week later, it was approved. I told Shannon it was very fortunate that they approved of everything. My one big concern about just schooling in general will be if I don't know that the teachers can keep this pace year after year after year after year. Of doing both jobs. And so if it's a requirement next year, I think across the state, across the nation, there'll be a mass exodus.
It's really not a sustainable system to be able to offer both.
Because you work all day,
Yeah.
and then in the evenings and whatnot, you're still getting emails and questions, and we tell them don't look at it, but they know if they, it's building. It's one of those things where I know this is piling up right now.
Well, you're doing in person all day, and so you have your conference during the day. But you're dealing with your ARDs or parent phone calls or grading and things like that. But you also have on this other side, you've got these remote learners who are doing work remotely, submitting it through Google Classroom, asking questions, and so now you've got this whole other piece on this side that you've got to be able to address. And a kid can do their work. It's based off engagement. That's what we get attendance off, is off engagement. So if a kid engages in school that day, then we can count present. Well, engagement is anywhere from 12:01, 12 midnight to 11:59 the next night. I mean, there's a whole 24 hours to where a kid can be engaged, can be engaged to count their attendance. And so attendance has been a real hard deal, especially for the secondary, because you've got to collect your attendance. You're almost running a day behind on your attendance because
That's
you've
what I
got to
was
check
gonna
your
ask
remote
about.
learners the next morning to see if they did any work the 24 hours before.
Yeah.
And so it's a really difficult to juggle.
Yeah, even
If they just log in for one teacher, then they're given credit for the full day, isn't that right?
Yeah, all they have to do is engage one class. So
One
a
class.
kid may have 8 periods in high school or in junior high. So they may look like they have 100% attendance rate because all they have to do is engage in one class.
One class.
So they may only engage in one class, they have 100% attendance rate, but they may be failing, the other 7.
There's two parts to it, there's the attendance,
There's an attendance
then
piece.
whether they're doing their work.
And so
Separated out.
it's been really tough to juggle the two. You think about, well, can we get a virtual teacher that would be able to handle some things in high school? Maybe you could do it by department, but it's hard to substitute a Van Collins who can teach a calculus or AP chemistry, or there's some of those that are just so specific that they'd be really hard.
And those teachers with several preps do that many videos?
Well, possibly.
Yeah.
Possibly. I mean, some, especially like in our CTE world, may have 4 different preps.
Mhm.
So they're having 4 different preps in person, but then they also have to have those classes available on the remote side, also loaded in their Google Classroom. It's our student
Yeah.
learning management system. So I mean, it's been tough. It's been stressful. So like I said, if we're required to move into this next year, it's going to be tough.
Yeah.
So, when you think about teachers, we try to think about everything that we do, time-wise, lessening, everything that we can, trying to provide time. And I don't know what the answer is. I don't know how to get more time though.
Yeah.
And that's really what it is.
It is hard.
Because you're trying to keep class sizes down, where you're social distancing class sizes. So there's a balance.
Yeah.
Social distancing is tough.
It's sometimes impossible.
Yeah, it really is.
Do you guys have any other questions?
So, okay.
the recommendation.
Ready for the recommendation?
You want to read?
I recommend that the Board of Trustees approve the asynchronous plan in response to COVID-19 for Gatesville ISD.
Is there a motion? Charles?
Our second.
And David?
Whatever.
Okay. Any more questions from Shane? All those in favor, raise your hand, please. Thank you. Motion carries.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.
It's tough.
Sure is. So now, Barrett, the resolution?
Yes, last item is to consider a resolution approving the Coryell Central Appraisal District's purchase and finance of certain property for an appraisal office in Copper's Cove. And so currently, Mr. Fast is here to answer any questions we may have, but kind of in a nutshell, and if I get any of this wrong, Mitch, just interject, but right now, the CCAD leases an office for $2,800 a month, okay, for about $33,500 a year. What they're proposing is to quit leasing and to buy something and just, work on purchasing it outright. And so, basically, in doing some calculations, from May of 2009 to January of 2021, the CCAD has already spent in excess of $350,000, on leasing. And so this new project, the monthly debt service payment would only be $27.50. So it'd actually be $50 cheaper to start trying to own this thing outright. And so the board of directors of the CCAD proposed purchasing a building located at 202 East Robertson Avenue there in Cove. And it's a total cost of $425,000. The CCAD plans on borrowing $375,000 and financing that amount for 15 years. So again, that monthly payment for that amount would be $27.50, which again is less than what they're paying in their renting. So really, it makes sense. They evaluated a lot of different locations there in Cove, and they felt like that was the best valued area. And so there's a resolution attached that's requesting GISD authorizing as a taxing entity the CCAD Board of Directors to purchase that building, renovate it, and finance the costs. And so before I make the official recommendation, Mitch, is there anything else to add to that?
You want to add anything?
I've got a few comments and I'll be brief,
Okay.
hopefully thorough. But the reason I'm here tonight is because for an appraisal district to acquire property, they have to get approval from 3/4 of a majority of the taxing units in their respective county. Coryell County has 18 taxing units. Many are quite small. Crawford ISD, Valley Mills ISD, Moody ISD, Lampasas ISD all have small geographic areas that enter into Coryell County. So if you're wondering where the 18 come from, a lot of them are from the smaller entities. There's 4 that make up about 90% of the budget that fund the appraisal district operations, which is Coryell County, Gatesville ISD, and City of Coppers Cove. They're all about 20-20-20. And then Coppers Cove Independent School District is about 30%. So that makes up the 90, the remaining 14 make up the last 10% of the budget. The reason I came in late today was because 4 school districts had their board meeting today. So I had 2 staff members attending Evan ISD and Crawford ISD, and I attended Clifton ISD at 6 and got back down here for this agenda item. The reason the board asked me to seek approval is because over about the last 18 months, we've been looking at what do we do when the lease expires on our current facility. You're supposed to look at available options. Those options included, do we even need an office in Coppers Cove anymore? Another option was maybe we just keep leasing our current facility, maybe we lease a different facility, maybe we build something new, or maybe we buy something and renovate it. It was determined that we're likely going to have a sticks and bricks office facility in Coppers Cove for the next 10 years. If we're going to have that facility for the next 10 years, we thought that being in a ownership arrangement is probably better for the taxing units and property owners. We looked at building something new. Commercial land in Coppers Cove is quite expensive, and about the cheapest budget estimate we could get to build something got us into the over $600,000 range. This project we thought was going to be a little bit cheaper than the $425 that was mentioned. However, in preliminary budgeting and looking at the project, remodeling costs seems to have increased due to the amount of construction activity that is going in a lot of these areas. So we're building in some bigger numbers for the remodel. We do have the facility under contract pursuant to taxing unit approval for $260,000. It's a 2,500 square foot dental office that'll be remodeled to be a office facility. So that leaves $165,000 for the remodel and professional costs that go along with it. You will have to have architectural stamp and engineered plans and that sort of thing to do any kind of remodeling in Coppers Cove. So we're anticipating that those expenses will mount. The Gatesville office we built in 2011. We did retire the debt service in 5.5 years, and so now there's no longer a line item on our operating budget for a Gatesville office facility. And that's really where I think the savings will be seen for the taxing jurisdictions. We're hopefully going to be able to retire our mortgage obligation faster than the 15 years that we're kind of planning for. and then we'll have no operating budget for the line item of operating facility operations in either location. If appraisal districts cease to exist, or we decide that we no longer need the dual offices, we can do with one office, then this same process occurs, and I seek approval to sell the building, and the proceeds are divvied up amongst the taxing units. So, just to build upon what Dr. Pollard said, we did work on this project for some time and think we came up with the most economical solution, and the math appears to work. Really, it boils down to should a local government agency own something, or should they continue to lease something? Because the math is going to be the same either way, as long as there's a sticks and bricks facility in Coppers Cove. So that's my spiel. I'm happy to answer questions if there are any. Yes.
So $2,800 a month is what the payment would be, correct? And that's what you're speculating.
Well, we went through a request for seal proposals for financing, and we had three lenders propose solutions. The one we picked, that's what their breakdown comes out to, $2,750 with their what we thought was the most advantageous to the appraisal district.
So does that include your, I'm assuming that the county would insure their own building? How do y'all do insurance? What are the other expenses on top of $2,800?
Well, even though it's a leased facility, we do have cleaning expenses, we do have lawn maintenance expenses, we do have maintenance expenses like light bulbs and air filters and that sort of stuff, which we don't anticipate there being a big change in those. I mean, there's always a possibility that a major system might go out. We do have a reserve for replacement for office facility already with our Gatesville office, so those funds would come out of that already existing fund. You were asking, insurance. We do have contents insurance for the other one through a group called TML. You guys probably have that type of insurance through companies that provide it specifically for school districts, but TML is a city-based insurance company. The Gatesville office is insured. It's about $600 a year for that type of coverage. And like I mentioned, we're already carrying content coverage for
the building.
Well, the building would be, for the Gatesville office, is about $600 for the building. It's got content coverage, and it's...
Y'all insure that building for fire damage for $600 a year?
TML is a risk pool.
Yeah. That's cheap.
The whole thing, which is like workers' comp and errors and omissions, is about $4,200 a year.
Okay.
The most expensive thing is the board liability, which covers various liability issues, as well as automobile liability if someone was driving and that sort of thing. I believe that's like $1,200 to $1,400, something like that. I'm kind of going by just...
I don't know how it all balances out, but one of the things that I've had trouble wrapping my mind around is when county owns property. So once y'all buy this, it takes it off the tax roll.
Right.
So you lose money.
It's about $6,700 per year is what the tax bill is. It doesn't have anything for Gatesville ISD, but Coppers Cove School District, Corio County, and City of Coppers Cove all remove funds from their appraisal roll. The percentage is basically like 0.001% of their total appraised value, so that number doesn't account for a lot of what their levy ends up being, but it certainly does bring that off the appraisal roll.
I've always wondered how that affected things. You know, with the, of course it depends on the building, the value, and...
Well, leased facilities remain on the appraisal roll under most circumstances, even if they're leased by governmental agencies. For instance, like the county and Extraco Bank.
Right.
The county owns that building, but the portion that's leased to Extraco Bank is on the appraisal roll.
Yeah.
Right. Other than that, all of the equipment, things like that, will be moved from the one office location to the other office location, so we're not anticipating any large office furniture expenses. We do have a computer replacement reserve. We'll maybe consider trying to tie in an upgrade in our computer system. Our current workstations have been in place since 2014, so they're going to be close to 7 years old as we get to that kind of January, February, March timeframe of 2021. So it makes sense maybe to go ahead and do that project, but we already have the funds set aside for all that. So once again, any maintenance issues and then insurance issues would be the differences between leasing the building and owning a building, which is, basically back to that's the question, because the math is going to be, the entities are going to be contributing about the same amount, whether it's leased or purchased. It's just which way do you think is more appropriate for governmental entities.
So the savings is 15 years down the road when you get it paid for.
Well, we were able to do
Between now and then, you're not really gonna save any money.
we were able to retire the debt obligation for the other property in 5.5 years. Typically, we have been ending every year with a surplus, and then that money was being dedicated to debt service reduction. Our budget is more and more refined every year, so we're not ending up with quite as large surpluses, but I don't anticipate we're going to be in that obligation for 15 years, but that's how we portray the math, because I don't want to make any kind of promise that...
If you've got a surplus, our taxes should go down.
Well, your taxes are based on your tax rate that you set. But any surplus would likely be allocated toward either legal and technology funds, which we do face litigation concerns. We do have litigation that happens, mainly it's the larger commercial operations, Walmart, H-E-B, that sort of stuff. So we need to have a fund there so we can handle those issues, and the remaining portion would likely be sent to debt service.
Any more questions for Mitch? Thanks for coming by.
My pleasure, sir. I was late. Like I said, the rain kind of messed with my plans just a little bit.
So the recommendation is to approve resolution number 2020-0600, authorizing the CCAD Board of Directors to purchase and renovate an office in Coppers Cove, as well as finance the project as presented.
I'll make the motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Charles, any more questions? Okay, all those in favor, raise your hand.
I didn't know enough about it to know whether I'm in favor of it or not.
I'm kind of torn, I guess. I don't know that it's a...
The way I looked at it was like home ownership. Would you rather rent for an eternity and keep paying that monthly payment? See, if they had done this 15 years ago, or back whenever, they'd have already paid for it. In my mind, it's a smart choice to go ahead and do it.
Instead of rent.
Instead of renting. I'm a big advocate of owning it outright and not being, that's how I looked at it anyway.
Well, you're building equity in that building.
Right.
So, is your vote yes or no? Or is it, I've just asked for yes.
I'll say yes.
All those in
You're
favor,
done.
let's show it again. Okay, motion carries.
It's kind
Thank
of
you.
It's, yeah.
back and forth deal, and I think it's a washout, really.
Okay, motion carries.
All right.
Thanks, Mitch.
Well, thank you all for your consideration. And just as a side note, I know you all have a lot on your plate this year, so thanks for fitting this in. It's a difficult year, so we've been super impressed with all the positive results that I've seen personally come out of the school this year. So I'm very happy to see that.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Quite a year.
Yeah, it sure
Yeah.
is.
One for the record books.
Y'all enjoy.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay.
All right, that's
We're
it.
ready for executive session?
We are. Y'all want to take a break?
Oh, let's take a break. 5-minute break, then we'll meet back in here. 10-minute break. How about 5 minutes? You want to write down the time, Charles?
7:45.
Charles is the note taker tonight.